This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. I hope you are able to hear me. Can you please confirm?
Yes, Bhaskar, we can.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Bhaskar. I have 12 plus years of IT experience and I'm working for one of the Indian company from Hyderabad. I'm working for data analytics team where it includes all ETL tools, that is SSIS we're having, and Azure Data Factory, and includes Databricks. So this is about brief about me. And before starting this session, do you have any idea about any ETL tool? Can you please everyone in mute? Yeah. So whoever is aware of any ETL tool, can you please confirm what is the purpose of ETL tool? Okay, so do you aware of what is the purpose of data factory or data bricks? How do you know about this data factory?
Yeah, Bhaskar, data factory we will use to build the pipelines to load the data from source to target. With the help of and Databricks, like we will use for validation purpose.
Okay, okay, okay. Then I'll take you through a little more in detail. So, what is the purpose of this data factory and why we need to go for this? We already existed ETL tools in the market. Okay, so please keep everyone in mute so that there will be no disturbance for others. Organizers, please can you make them to mute everyone? Okay, so if you have a data, if you wanted to get analytics on top of the data, we need to have a ETL tools. So from Microsoft itself, we are already having SSIS to go for ETL processing, extraction, transformation, and loading. So when they're already having ETL tool from the same company, why they brought this data factory and why we are having even Azure Databricks. I'll talk about a little more in detail about it. So if I wanted to take any decision against your business, then we need to have a information. We need to have a information. Information is always in the form of chart. So how we are going to get this chart? We need to show something in the y-axis and we need to show something in the x-axis. For this one, we need to bring the data. So data is going to be there somewhere else. And this is not going to be part of our activity, but this is our target. We are going to prepare the data accordingly the business requirement. So when you are preparing data for this, then how you are going to give a data to the downstream system. This is a downstream system, and where exactly we are going to work is we are going to work on the top of this particular system. So we need to prepare a data accordingly to the business intelligence. So where exactly we are going to have a data? Your data is going to have is your data is going to be there in the a business system. So wherever you are going to have your business data, that we can call it as a business system, or we can also call this system as OLTP system. How we are going to bring the data into this system is not our job, but from here we need to take the data for our activities. Once the data is landed here, that may be SQL Server, or that may be Oracle, or that may be file system, or any system it is. You are having some data here. I wanted to get insights on top of this data. If I wanted to get insights on top of this data, then what you are going to use it. So before bringing this into the picture, previously we used to have a ETL tools in the market. Even now also we are having ETL tools in the market. So what they used to do is they used to extract the data from the various systems. The system may be SQL Server. You may have your business data in a SQL Server, or you may have a data in your any system it is. You are going to bring the data from there. The process of taking data from any of this system, we can call it as a extraction. We can call this as a extraction. How you're extracting data is out of the boundary at this point of time. So depends on the data source. We are having a different tools in the market. That is the traditional tools like SSIS, Informatica, data stays, something like this, we are having already in the market. All these tools supposed to bring data from the various systems, and then we are going to apply transformation here. We are going to apply transformation here. So once that is transformed with business requirement, so how we can gather the requirement, how we can understand the requirement, how we can break them into pieces, that we are going to talk about it. But you just imagine, right after extracting the data from the systems, then we are going to do the transformation as per the business requirement. So what are the different types of transformations are available? We are going to talk about it. And then it is going to load the data into the destination. Your destination is your data warehouse, or we can say OLAP system. OLAP system, or we can say DWH. Your final target is the data warehouse. So we never ever store directly into the data store. I mean to say data warehouse. So in between that, you will be having staging. So we'll talk about it a little later. At this point of time, I just wanted to say, right after doing the transformation with various business logic, we are going to store the data into the OLAP system, or we can call it as a data warehouse. In this particular system, we are not going to have a historical data. So why we need to have a historical data is, if I wanted to compare my business month by month, year by year with different products, then definitely we need to have a historical data. If you started business 10 years ago, then you need to have a 10 years data in this particular place. But here we are not going to have a 10 years of data. The reason is, this system is designed for running the business. The system is not designed for analysis. The system is not designed for decision making. So only OLAP system only is designed, the way the design is going to be happen is supporting for decision making. We are going to take the decisions on top of this particular system. So we are going to have a years of data in this particular place. So this is how we used to do in the previously. So there are few problems are there with the traditional approach. So to overcome those traditional approaches, we are having Azure Data Factory and we are having Azure Databricks.
Hi Prasad here. Sorry, I have joined just now. Might I have missed
Yeah,
something
Prasad.
very important?
Yeah, I'll give little a brief idea about it. So basically, before Azure Data Factory, what we are talking is what we are having to shape your business data to get the insights. So we have to give the data to the a downstream system where they're going to get the insights. For that reason, previously we used to go for SQL Server integration services, Informatica, data stage. Like this, there are various ETL tools in the market. So all those ETL tools are going to extract the data from the business systems, and they're going to integrate the data. They're going to save the data with the help of various transformations. All these ETL tools are going to support similar kind of activities, the similar kind of purpose. And once, right after doing all the required transformations, we are going to load the data into the destination. The destination in this particular case, I'm taking a data warehouse. We are going to store the data here. So this was the traditional approach that we used to do it. But later we had a lot of issues. So what kind of issues you are facing? You are facing with the traditional approach. So when you go for traditional approach, a lot of cost you need to bear. We need to have a like a few problems I'm going to note here. The one is the storage problem. The storage is very, very difficult. The storage that we are going to do in this particular system. A business system is fine, but when it comes to the warehouse, this is the place they are going to face an issue. So storage is an issue because we are having a big data came into picture. So since we are having a lot of transactions day to day, storing data is a very big problem. So storage is a problem. And once you store very huge volume of data, once you have a very huge volume of data, doing processing with the traditional approach is very difficult. It may go for more than 24 hours also to process if you have a very huge volume of data. So processing is also is a problem. So storage is a problem as data increases, and processing is also is a problem since there is a very huge volume of data. So by using the traditional approach is very difficult, and varieties of the data also available in the market. So these systems will not support to process other than structured data. So they support to process only structured data. But now we are having semi-structured data, unstructured data. Okay, so varieties of data is available in the market. So that is also one of the problem. So storage is a problem and processing is a problem, and even cost is also is a problem. You have to pay a lot of cost. So there are many problems are there if you go with the traditional approach. So this is the place market is identified, and they came up with the a different kind of solutions in the market. I have to take the I have to get the solution on top of my data with less price, with less time, and very faster. So if this is the case, then definitely we need to go for a different technologies. We need to move out of this. So whatever I listed the traditional approach, this is completely on-prem. So on-premise means you have to take care everything from your side. You have to take care about your hardware. You have to take care about your software. You have to take care about your infrastructure, and you have to take care about your patches updates, everything, whatnot, everything you have to take care about it. So instead of taking everything from our side, why don't we take from outside? Why don't we take it rent? So if we can take it from someone else who provides a services to you, then we can reduce a lot of cost. Okay, so I'll give little more clarity about that particular place, but I just wanted to give the differentiate how traditional approach is there and how the new approach is there that I wanted to take you through that. If we can go with the Azure Data Factory, the same thing. There are many projects are existed in all these traditional approaches. So those projects are migrating from the on-premise to the cloud platform. When they go for the cloud platform, so most of the people are choosing Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. There are many reasons are there. Cost cut, like license cost is very less when you compare with others. So there are many cloud vendors are there, but Microsoft Azure is very less when you compare with others. That's we'll talk about that. That even that is not going to be much important. Let's say for example, if I have a SSIS project, something like this, if I wanted to migrate this project into Azure Data Factory, or if it is a brand new project, how you are going to do it? That is what I'm going to take you through here. We are going to have a data in the a business system. Same to same. Let's say it is a OLTP system. Wherever you're having your business data, that I'm just talking about OLTP system. Once you have a data in the OLTP system, then I'm going to dump all this data into Azure storages. I'm not going to bring directly data from OLTP system to data warehouse. Instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump this data into Azure storages. let's say ADLS Gen 2 I'm saying. I wanted to bring the data from the business system. I wanted to bring the data from the business system to Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. The process of taking data from this particular systems, I just wanted to say this entire process, data ingestion. I mean to say I'm going to ingest the data from the business systems into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. How we are going to do it? It's just a dump. Okay, basically they don't give the data access directly from the business system. Okay, you will be having SFTP server, they're going to keep the data there and we are going to take it in general. Okay, so I'm just saying that is a business system. Whatever, even this is also, it's like a shared path or centralized location where they're going to keep all the files. And you need to bring the data from there into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 in general. So to understand, I'm just saying this is a OLTP system. We need to ingest the data. To ingest this data, I'm going to use Azure Data Factory. I'm going to use Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is used to extract the data from the various data sources. It is going to extract the data from the various data sources. If you have a data, if you have a files in the SFTP server, you can take it from the SFTP. If your data is having there in the SQL Server database, it takes data from SQL Server. And if data is there in the any file system, then we can also take the data from that particular places. We have a predefined connectors. We don't require to write anything. Everything is navigations. It's a ADF is a code-free ETL tool. We don't require to write a code. We are going to write only expressions. Expressions is not a coding. How we can write the expressions like a plus b is an expression. Okay, so this kind of expressions we are going to write it. So it is a completely user interface tool where we are not going to write the code. So Azure Data Factory is used to extract the data from the business system and is going to load the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. We are extracting and then we are going to load the data. Extraction and loading. Why we need to load the data without doing transformation? Is Data Factory not supporting transformation? Answer is no. It supports transformation also. Azure Data Factory is also doing transformation. It can do the transformation. But why we are not doing the transformation is because to improve the performance. In the first stage of working with the Azure Data Factory projects, we are going to do the data ingestion only. We are not going to do the transformation because when you take the data from the directly systems, business systems, they will not support to read parallelly. They will not support read parallelly. If it is not supporting to read data parallelly, it will not do processing parallelly. So because of that reason, we are going to read the data from the business system and we are going to load the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Once the data is landed into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, few solutions are what we can say, few benefits are there here. The size of the data, we can store unlimited volume of data here. There is no limit to store the data. And varieties of data also we can store. We can store unstructured data, we can store semi-structured data, we can store structured data. So unlimited data we can store as part of this. And when you start reading data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, we can read parallelly. We can read parallelly from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. You'll be having a distributed file system here. So maybe you're aware of HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. The same features we're having in the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 also. So Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is specifically designed for big data solutions. We can store very huge volume of data, and we can provide the solution for the big data. Now, in the second stage of data factory, what you are going to do is, now your data source is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and again your destination is ADLS Gen 2 only. Same data factory you are going to use to read the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. We can say the process of taking data from this ADLS as extract. So now this is the place where we are going to do the transformation. We are going to do the transformation here, and then we are going to load the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So if you combine all three together, the initial character of each and every character, extraction, transformation, unloading. So this part we can say data transformation.
Basically, data ingestion means just extracting and loading data, sir.
Exactly. Data ingestion is extracting and loading. So the reason is we have a more benefits if data is coming from the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 for processing. If you directly take it from the business system, it degrades the performance. That's not the best practices to do it. Okay. Now I'll
Okay.
tell you a few more things. Basically, if data is landing with the Parquet format, the performance will be very more. Okay, so I'll talk about all those things later. So in the second stage, we are going to do the transformation. In the second stage, we are going to do the transformation with same Azure Data Factory only, ADF. So once the data is landed in the this particular place, and before that, I just wanted to say whatever the data is there in the first data lake storage Gen 2 is raw data. So unprocessed data, we are going to have it. Let's say unprocessed data. We are having data which is not processed here, which is not saved, which is not transformed. So that is a raw data here. I mean to say whatever the data is there in the business system, the same data is landing into the data lake storage Gen 2. So we can say unprocessed container, the naming conventions they used to say unprocessed or processed, okay, or raw or cleaned. So whatever the name it is, we are having raw data in this particular place. Then we are going to integrate the data, we are going to transform the data with the help of Azure Data Factory, and we are going to load the data into the destination. So again, the destination is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and this is cleansed data it is. This is saved. This is saved data. So we cannot go for directly doing analysis on top of this, but we can take this data for doing analytics. We can start doing analysis on top of this data. So why people used to go for storing data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 instead of storing the data into Azure Data Warehouse? Even Azure Data Warehouse also we are having it. So this is license cost is more. License cost is more for Azure Data Warehouse. Okay, but at this point of time, in the starting stage, they're going to store into ADLS Gen 2. In the second stage also, they're going to store into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And from here, from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, as a cleansed data, to read the data from this particular place, to read the data from this place by the BI systems. Let's say Power BI. If you are aware of it, just imagine there is some reporting tool. They can take the data from here to here. They can take the data from the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 to here. The problem here is to read the data from there, definitely it is going to take a little more time because files are not going to have a indexes. It's a file system. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is a file system. You're not going to have a indexes. You're not going to have a joins. It's just like your system file system. So in order to have all those features, we need to have a Azure data warehouse. Okay, so from here data will go to the Azure data warehouse. So to load the data into Azure data warehouse, again you can use the data factory. This is one of the option. This is one of the option to load the data into Azure data warehouse. Apart from that, we can also write we can use the Synapse SQL to read the data from here and to keep the data here. By creating external tables. So we can create external tables in this particular place. So those external tables are going to point to the data Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So I'll give brief idea about this Synapse because it's out of the boundary for this, but I'm just going to give an idea how it is going to be there. How we can point to this particular place. I'll take you through that so that you can have a idea how we can create external tables. So external tables are not going to store the data. They're not going to store the data. So data remains in the same place, but it is just going to have a like a SQL tables. And physical storage also we can do it. And apart from this, we can also use Synapse workspace, so where we can have everything. So Synapse is nothing. Synapse is something like ADF plus ADB plus VTF. So if we combine all three together, we can say it is a Synapse. Okay, so it's very cost, license cost when you compare with others, it is very much more. So if you have a specific requirement to go with this one, you can go for that. Otherwise, we don't recommend you to go for Synapse directly. So until unless there is a specific reason or specific requirement to process the data. So license cost is also very important. So in the data factory itself, in the first stage, we're dumping and keeping data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. But when it comes to the second stage, we are doing the transformation. Now here is the place we can do the transformation. So recently, a year ago, we got a data flow here. Previously, data flow was not there. From the version 2 onwards, they introduced a data flow. So data flow, they specifically designed for doing transformation. Specifically designed for doing transformation. So behind the scene, it is going to have a Spark cluster. So where we are going to do transformation on top of the cluster. So whatever you have done with the user interface, that is going to be converted into a Spark job. So Spark job is going to be executed to transform the data. Here is the problem. The Spark cluster cost is more. Let's say I have a SSIS project, traditional ETL project. Just imagine that may be SSIS, that may be Informatica. There are many traditional ETL projects. Traditional ETL projects are there in the market. So they wanted to migrate from on-premise to cloud platforms. So when I say traditional ETL projects, 100% is they have a structured data only. They have a only structured data, 100% is. Okay. Now, if they wanted to process this structured data by using this data flow, they have to pay license cost more because they need to have a cluster. So some projects, what they used to do is they don't do the transformation with the data flow. They don't do the transformation with the data flow. In place of this data flow, we can go and do the transformations with the stored procedures. We can do the transformations with the stored procedures so that we can reduce license cost like anything. The run and maintenance is going to be reduced. Drastically is going to be checked. So like this, there are few projects are there. And in some projects, what they are going to do is doing transformations with data flow. At this point of time, there are very less people are there in the market because you have to know about these navigations. They have a very huge volume of data. They are ready to do a parallel processing. They have a budget. Okay. So if that is the case, then you can go and do the transformation with the data flow. Okay. When you wanted to do the transformation with the data flow, then doing with data flow, the people to do the development, we have a very less people in the market. Okay, so because of that reason, even before data flow in the market, before data flow came into the market, we have a other Databricks was there. So Databricks was there to do the transformation, and whatever we have done with Azure Data Factory, prior to Azure Data Factory, we have a Databricks. So Databricks reads data from the business system. Databricks ingests the data into the HDFS, and Databricks takes the data from HDFS and loads data into again HDFS after doing the transformation. Okay, so the problem with the Databricks is it's 100% is coding. 100% is coding it is. Everyone is not more interested to write in coding, right? Most of the people. So Microsoft identified here. So why don't we have a user interface tool to do all this kind of activities? So what Databricks is doing, why don't we provide with user interface tool? So because of that reason, the data factory came into picture. So we don't require to write a coding. We can do everything with user interface. So whatever it is required to do with Databricks, some people we are doing both. I mean to say data factory will be there and Databricks also will be there. So data factory and Azure Databricks will be there to do your activities. Okay. So when you go with this Azure Databricks, you can also extract the data and you can do the same thing. ADB, Azure Databricks. We can transform the data by writing the code. The beauty thing in the Azure Databricks is we can write any code. We can write a SQL. We can write a Python. We can write a Scala. Okay, so we can write R. So whatever you are interested, that you can do it. As we are coming from the ETL background, as we are going to handle the data analytics, 90% is, I'm sure, we are going to write the SQL. 90% is. Okay. So rest of the percentage we are going to write a Python. I mean to say PySpark, we can call it as PySpark or Scala. So it's all depends. But 90% is I'm sure we are going to use the SQL. We have a feasibility to write it. So that is what we have created a notebooks as part of the project, and those notebooks most of the things will be the SQL code. And where exactly the 10% is that we have used is the starting part, reading part, and writing part. So three parts will be there in the notebook in general. One is the reading part, and the last is the writing part. In the middle, we are going to have a transformation section. So reading logic, transformation logic, and writing logic. So reading is a PySpark and writing is also PySpark we have used. But most of the transformations that we have done with a SQL, because we have a lot of traditional ETL projects are there. Okay, so you feel much more better, easier SQL and when you compare with the PySpark. But we are going to see the PySpark also as part of the regular sessions, and SQL SQL that we have to get update from your side. And as we are, I hope everyone is aware of SQL, right? Is anyone not aware of SQL? Okay, mostly aware of it. So this is how we are going to write the notebooks. Okay, and once this is done, then we are going to give it to the reporting team. So reporting team will take care about what they wanted to take it from this particular place. So we don't care how they're taking and what they're taking. So accordingly the requirement, we are going to load the data into the fact tables and we are going to load the data into the dimension tables. And one more thing we need to keep in mind is when you're doing any activity, we need to log it. So logging is also important. So what is happening, and if you wanted to know where exactly it is happened, or I wanted to see how many failures happen for every month, is that regular failures? So to do some kind of auditing, then we need to have a logging details also. For every activity, for every transformation, we are going to log the details. So that is what we are going to have as part of this. So wherever we have a Azure Data Factory, we are going to have a Azure Data Bricks also. Okay, so to avoid this coding, Microsoft came with the Azure Data Factory and they concentrated more on the data flow. So we are having many features in the data flow when you compare with the Databricks. So Databricks also have their own capabilities. At the same time, even Data Factory is also having their own capabilities. So that is what it is. And what we are going to cover as part of this particular session, that I'm just going to take you through the content. So introduction to Microsoft Azure that I'm going to take you through. So what are the different types of the cloud systems are available, or what are the services we are providing from the Microsoft, how we can create a Azure account, and what are the different types of services that we are going to get it from Microsoft, that we are going to have a brief idea about it from this particular place. And I told you we are going to store the data. So we need to know about the storage. Storage is required and processing is required. So how we can store the data in Azure in Azure platform. So Azure Data Factory is not a storage, is not a storage service. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how we can store the data in the different places. We can store in the different places. Okay. We have a blob storage here, and we have a ADLS, and we have a databases also. The cloud system, I mean to say in Azure cloud, Azure platform, we are having a different kind of storages, how we can store the data that we are going to see as part of this. And when you store the data, definitely security is also important. How securely can bring the data from the places, how they're going to provide the securities. I'm just going to give a brief idea about it, and we are not going to work on top of that particular area. So we are just readers only. If you need something, we are just going to ask them to provide access. So they will provide, the admin team will be there, different Azure administration team will be responsible to provide all these accesses. But to have an idea, I'm going to take you through that, how we can provide the security for your storages. So right after storing the data, then we need to start reading data from that particular place to save the data as per the business requirement. So for that reason, we are going to talk about this Azure Data Factory, what are the different components we are having, and how we can start taking data. First of all, how we can understand the logic, how we can break the business logic into pieces that we are going to see. And I'm going to take you through more in detail and to write the dynamic expressions. So dynamic pipelines also is very important. So dynamic pipelines, so that we can do it in Azure Data Factory. So doing dynamically in Databricks is not possible to make a dynamic things. But whereas in a data factory, we can create a dynamic pipelines. So that is very important. So I'm going to take you through, that is not listed in the content, but I'm going to take you through this dynamic pipelines. So that we have implemented in my previous project for my previous company. So that I'm going to take you through that, how it is going to be there. So move and transform, to move the data, they specifically have a copy data activity, and for transformation, we have a data flow activity. So we'll talk about that. And to go for controlling, we are having a general activities and iteration activities that we are going to see as part of the data factory. So apart from this, we are going to have we are going to touch this logic apps also, because to send an alert mails right after completion of your work from the Azure Data Factory, we need to use this logic apps. So I'll take you through that, how we can set up to send an alerts. right after completion, or if it is failed, then we can log the data by using directly Azure Data Factory, but we cannot directly go and see the log until unless we have a alert. So we cannot keep an eye on the monitoring. So you're going to work, you keep on working, and if you get an alert mail, then we are going to start digging into the issue. For that reason, we are going through this logic apps, how we can create a logic app and how we can integrate with Azure Data Factory, that we are going to see. And the real-time scenarios that I'm going to take you through here, how we can bring the data, just go through them. And I have around 25 here, but 10 more I'm going to take you through, more or less 35 different scenarios that I'm going to take you through to cover most of the activities. I'm going to talk about the individual activity, and I'm going to take the situation, how we have come across this kind of situation, that I'm going to take you through that. And then we are going to start talking about the Databricks. So Databricks, how we can create a notebooks, how we can create a RDDs. So everything that I'm going to take you through only a Databricks only. We can create a Databricks account. It's a free of cost that we can take it. The same thing, whatever I'm going to take you through the Databricks account, the same thing you can do it with Azure Databricks also. The reason Azure Databricks is you need to pay the license cost. We don't have a free of cost, even if you have a free subscription of Azure. So free subscription will not work for this. You need to have a paid license. I'll show you one time, but regularly I'm going to take you through general Databricks community account.
Hi, Bhaskar garu, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just for a second. Hello everyone, this is Lakshmi from Career IT. So small info from our end. The regular sessions of this batch will be starting from Wednesday IST, which falls on 31st May of this month. So the session timings will be from 7 to 8 a.m. IST. For more details, you can details on the numbers, whatever I have provided in the chat. Thank you. Yeah, Bhaskar garu, please you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So how we can create a data frames? So basically, most of the times when you go for the Databricks, mostly you're going to create a data frames. So it's like a tables only. Okay, so how we can create, how we can do transformation. So once we have a created data frame, we can convert the data frame into a view. So once we have a view, then you can write a SQL code. So this is how we have done. I'm going to take you through how we can handle all those things as part of this Databricks, and how we are going to have a project, like the project flow that I'm going to take you through. If it is a data factory, how it is going to be there, and if the project is having both the data factory as well as Databricks, how it is going to be there. And if it is only Databricks, then you have to do everything in a coding only. Okay, so doing everything in coding is little difficult. The people who are not having background of coding, if you have a combination of them, or if you have only Azure Data Factory, then definitely you're going to enjoy. Okay, and even if you have a completely Databricks also, if you can aware of if you are aware of SQL coding, you can reduce a lot of effort to write a lot of things with the PySpark. So PySpark is also is not difficult. It is very easy when you compare with other codings. So instead of writing too many lines of code, we can write 1 or 2 lines with PySpark. So we can reduce a lot of lines of code. I'm going to take you through how we can create a RDDs and how we can create a data frames to transform the data as per the business requirement, and how we can read the data from ADLS to Databricks. So how we can do it with Data Factory? They have a inbuilt of functionalities, but when it comes to the Databricks, we need to mount it. So how we are going to mount that? Mount is not our job basically when it is at the time of working, but you need to be aware of it. There are chances to ask in the interview how we can mount it. So that I'm going to take you through how we can mount from Azure storages to a Databricks. If it is a Azure Databricks also is okay, no problem. We can directly take it. But if it is normal Databricks, then we need to mount it. How we are going to handle all those things that I'm going to take you through. So that's all about it. And if you have any question, you can ask me.
Yeah, Bhaskar, what is meant by data migration?
Data migration or data migration project. Migration
Yeah,
project,
like
not like
data ingestion. Sorry.
data ingestion. You're saying, right?
Yeah, data data ingestion, data migration will be there, right?
Data migration means basically migration projects will be there. Okay, so
Okay.
data
In that,
migration.
hmm
So in general, data migration is project migration is if you have a lower version, if you are moving from lower version to higher version, then we can say it is a migration.
like dev to pro UAT or prod like that.
Not like that. Let's say for example, SQL Server, if you are aware of it, 2012, just imagine. I have a data source in this, and they are going to decommission this. So just imagine Microsoft is decommissioning this 2012, and they are asking us to upgrade it. So we need to upgrade this to SQL Server 2019 or 2022. Okay, just imagine. So we need to migrate from this place to this place. So this is a migration project. Okay, so
Okay.
data ingestion is just moving from one place to another place. Data is not going to change. The value of the data is not going to change.
Mhm. In data migration also we will use same process like ADF and ADB only.
Data migration or in
In
this
data
particular place.
migration. Yeah, yeah. In that particular.
In that particular situation, we have a different approaches to do it. It's not like data factory or something. Okay, let's say for example, um, presently ADF version 2 is there. Just imagine. So later 1 year or 2 years, ADF version 3 is coming into the picture. Now you need to migrate from version 2 to version 3. That means your pipeline has to be changed with latest version. So how we can change at this point of time? We are not having, I mean to say, next version at this point of time. So maybe in the future, we don't know how they are going to ask us to provide the solution. They may give directly migration option, or they may come up with a different approaches to do it. But here we have a different tools to do it. We have a tools. Okay, so this is one thing. And
Okay.
let's say, for example, I have a SSIS project. So SSIS project, I wanted to migrate this SSIS project to ADF. It's not like just a few clicks we are going to do it. We have to redesign it. We have to rebuild it. I'm going to take the same logic of this task, and I'm going to do the same task, same approach I'm going to do with ADF, but different navigations, different approach. The outcome of this and outcome of this is identical. So that is a migration project. Okay. Any other
Yeah.
questions?
No, like Azure functions also you will explain.
No.
Okay.
Bhaskar, are you going to cover SSIS as well?
SSIS is not part of this content. But like if you know data factory, understanding SSIS is simple. The namings of activities is little more or less same also. Anyone else?
What is the course duration, Bhaskar? How many days it will take?
It takes 45 days.
Okay,
So here
daily
we are
1 hour.
not learning anything about store procs and everything, right?
No, we are not going to cover in depth of the stored processor, but how we can use and how we can create a stored processor, that I'm going to take you through.
Just a small request, Bhaskar. Can you please
Yeah.
drop the whatever the topics that we are covering, we just showed right in a doc. Can you please
Yes.
put it somewhere?
Yeah.
The
So
Google.
the team, career IT team, they will share the that content details to you directly, so that you can go through that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else having any question? Okay, then if you have any question, you can reach out to the career writers, so they will keep in touch with you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
ఇది ఒకటే వేస్తాను రౌండ్గా తిప్పేది ఒకటే